Welcome to day 175. We are in Isaiah 8 through 11, and there is a lot of wonderful things in this book and today's stuff. So let's get at it. First of all, let's talk about conspiracies. We don't want to fall prey to all the conspiracies that are out there, and I'll tell you why. Chapter 8, verse 12. Don't call everything a conspiracy like they do, and don't live in dread of what frightens them. Make the Lord of Heaven's armies holy in your life. He is the one you should fear. That's why you shouldn't listen to all the conspiracies. First of all, maybe there is a conspiracy that is true, but fear of the Lord is really where we're at. And we need to understand that God is in control. It doesn't matter what really is going on. We are to try to understand it, be knowledgeable, be able to say things about it, defend things, but for the Lord. That's what we're supposed to do. Now, next point, mediums. Verse 19 in chapter 8. Someone may say to you, let's ask the mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. Okay, so one of your references for witches and witchcraft and magic and mediums, I have a list here. This is a verse that goes on there. And the point behind this is when people are scared and in fear for their lives and they don't have God in their lives and there's no foundation for them, they resort to anything that's going to make them feel better, and that includes mediums and psychics, and that's why the world is the way it is today, because people have fallen away from God. Now, chapter 9, we really start getting into it. Verse 1, nevertheless, that time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. What a great promise. It won't go on forever. It's been going on for a while, but it won't go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled, but there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, which lies along the road that runs between the Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory. Okay, verse 2 of chapter 9. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Not that they're going to be saved or anything, but the point is, everybody is going to see a great light. It's going to be Jesus. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. Verse 6, and I'm going to point out specific verses that are used a lot, so this is one of them. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. Okay, so that hasn't happened yet. That's the key point here. But when it does happen, it will never end. So when Christ comes a second time, his rule will last forever. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. So that's talking about the second coming. Okay, that doesn't mean there won't be bad things. He will rule, and justice will prevail, which means there will be injustice during the time of the 1,000 years after he comes again. Jesus comes a second time, he sets up his kingdom, and for 1,000 years he reigns on earth with us on earth, and yet there's still people being born and alive and well during that time, and there will need to be justice. And then the great white throne judgment at the end of the 1,000 years. So real quickly, here's the chronological order of events. We're in the church age, okay? And you're in the church age, and the church age ends between the rapture or the second coming. So between the rapture and the second coming of the 7 years of the Antichrist ruling. At the end of the 7 years, Christ comes back the second time. So the church age started with Christ coming the first time, the rapture, and then the church age ends at the second coming of Christ. The Antichrist and the false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. Christ comes down and he sets up his 1,000-year reign on earth. At the end of the 1,000 years, Satan is thrown into the lake of fire. The great white throne judgment happens, and all the people are, bad people are thrown into the lake of fire as well. Then eternity begins, really, at that point. Okay, so, moving on. Here's something that is just like today. I'm going to, chapter 9, verse 13. For after all this punishment, the people will still not repent. They will not seek the Lord of Heaven's army. So, the rebelliousness is thick, and even back then, and it still is today. It doesn't matter what the truth is. They're not searching for the truth. They're searching for whatever makes them feel good. That's today. And that's why you cannot bring light to someone who refuses to walk in the light. They don't want to see it. It doesn't make them feel good. They have to acknowledge their faults. Okay? Verse 19, the land will be blackened by the fury of the Lord of heaven's armies. The people will be fuel for the fire, and no one will spare even his own brother. They'll eat their own children. This is during the time when they, right before they're getting exiled, during that time. Shoot, today we're killing our own children, so whatever. I want to point out something about God. Chapter 10, verse 15. First of all, verse 1, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws? Well, you're a judge. You're in a position to make a decision of right and wrong. You got to be careful because you're going to be held accountable. Verse 15, let me read this to you. But can the axe boast greater power than the person who uses it? Is the saw greater than the person who saws? Can a rod strike unless a hand moves it? Can a wooden cane walk by itself? Or we could say, can a gun kill somebody without someone pulling the trigger? No. The point behind all of this is the Lord is the one who decides what is happening. He may not pull the trigger, but he is the one who allows certain things to happen. He doesn't want some things to happen, but there is a plan and it's laid out before us. We chose bad things. He knew we would. He didn't make us do it. He just knows we would. And it doesn't happen without him knowing it. It doesn't happen without him saying this is going to happen. Here's the key. They all fall short of God. They all leave. They're exiled. 10:22, chapter 10, verse 22. But though the people of Israel are as numerous as the sand of the seashore, only a remnant of them will return. Meaning they're exiled. Only a small amount will return. And that's key because that's what makes God unhappy. He makes a way for them to return from their exile. And only a small portion returns. And that really angers God, and that's a big part of why they were exiled and not allowed to return until May 15th, 1948. Now, there were 30,000 people in the 1800s, 30,000 Israelites in Israel in the late 1800s, but May 15th, 1948, when the United Nations in one day allowed them to come back to their own land, gave them their own land, set it up as their own nation. That's the key. That time there is what happens when only a remnant returns. That angers God and multiplies their exile 7 times over, which is what we read back in Numbers and Deuteronomy and that time at the beginning. Okay, now, chapter 11 is really about Jesus. Just going to read a few things and make a couple points. Out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot, yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root, and the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, yada, yada, yada. Goes on and on, describes Christ. What an awesome thing. And remember, this is the book of Isaiah. It was written 700 years before Christ was born. Talking about a time in the future of us where he comes back and will be awesome. Verse 6, I've got 4 different asterisks here I want to point out. Verse 6, in that day the wolf and the lamb will live together. The leopard will lie down with the baby goat. Okay, that saying. Okay, another one, verse 8, the baby will play safely near the hole of a cobra. Yes, a little child will put its hand in the nest of a deadly snake without harm. That's in the future. That's what an awesome thing. Nothing will hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for as the waters fill the sea, so the earth will be filled. The earth will be filled with the people who know the Lord. This is in the future. Verse 11, in that day the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to bring back the remnant of his people, those who remain in Assyria and northern Egypt. This is important here, the places. Assyria, northern Egypt, southern Egypt, Ethiopia, Elam, Babylonia, Hamath, and all the distant coastlands. All over the world, people will come back. And you can check these places. There are Israelite people in these places. And they are starting to come back. Okay, and you really do need to read chapter 11 closely. So if you're just watching this and haven't read, you need to read chapter 11. And read it closely. Verse 15 is key here, and I'll end with this one. The Lord will make a dry path through the gulf of the Red Sea. He's done this so much during the time of the Israelites, and he's going to do it again. And there's another part where he's going to do it again. It's great. He will make a path through the Red Sea for all the people to come back to him. All right. But he also makes a path for the armies to come across on dry ground for Armageddon. And when he does that, he annihilates them, and that leaves another dry path for all the people to return. What a wonderful, awesome thing that is. And what a great day this has been. Day 175, and it just keeps getting better and worse at the same time. So I'll see you tomorrow.